My name is Jon Rowan Jr., live in Alaska. Topic right now is harvesting black seaweed and harvesting gumboots. We take a boat, usually a small skiff. One morning when we were heading out, we had 40 killer whales come around us. That was cool. Had the little babies coming up right beside the boat. A lot of times you're going back to the same area you picked the year before. The way I pick seaweed is it's kind of like hair, and you grab it and you pull. Most of the time, getting a gumboot's pretty easy to pop off. You can use a butter knife. It's a lot of bent over work among the rocks, you know. I always tend to pick the bigger ones, a lot easier to work on. When we go, we'll pick our area, because it grows in bunches, and you'll take and pile it up and pile it up, pick and you move and you pile it up, and then move to another section if you don't have what you need. You know, we pick extra because there's other family members that can't get out, so we save some for them. You always want to share with your friends and your relatives. You know? Get you a 5-gallon bucket load and get them home and get them cooked up.
I'm Leslie Sheakley. I live in Craig, Alaska, and I'm here to show you guys how to put up pickled gumboots. You need to put some water in a pan to steam them, and get it over to the stove. Turn the heat on high to get the water hot, and then we're going to start layering the gumboots inside of it. The bigger ones are taking longer to cook, so I take the smaller ones out sooner than the bigger ones. And they're gonna start changing color. Right here, changing, that one's changing. They go from the reddish pink color to like almost a gray color. And it doesn't take long for them to cook. And if you cook them too long, they turn like rubber. Okay, these are changing color, so I'm going to grab a bowl and put them in the bowl. It's a lot of work, but it's really tasty. Okay, now we're going to take them over to the sink, chill in them, and they're done. Start at the bottom of the gumboot. Take the shells off, and then you take the second one, pull, third one, fourth one. These are all the guts. Get rid of all the guts and rinse them off. It's a clean gumboot. I'm going to put them in a Ziploc for tomorrow to pickle. See how much we get out of it when you pickle it. After you cook the gumboots and rinse them and clean them and take the shells off, they're ready to pickle, and you get your jars ready. Rinse them in cold water and rinse the lid and get them ready for the table to start pickling. We're going to start cutting up the onions and the lemons to put in the jars. Slice those up thin. Making my eyes water. Now we're going to cut the gumboots to fit the jar. I usually cut the big ones in quarters for bite size. short tablespoon on the bottom. Now I'm gonna put some gumboots in there and a little bit of onion and a lemon for color. I'm gonna start with a cup of vinegar. I'm gonna pour the vinegar in just to cover the gumboots. I'm gonna start adding the soy sauce. I'm gonna measure half a cup. I'm adding more gumboots to keep layering. Okay, we're gonna add more onions and lemons. More soy sauce. I'll add a half a cup of vinegar to this. Push it all down. One more spoonful of pickling spice on top. Make sure the gumboots are covered. Then put your lid on. Gumboots usually last 3 to 6 months in the refrigerator, but they usually disappear faster than that because they're so delicious.
Hi, my name is Tamara Buoy. I'm from Craig, Alaska on Prince of Wales Island. The whole process to dry the seaweed after you pick it is about 2 to 3 days. So if you have good weather for 2 or 3 days, pull it out and start. We take the seaweed out the night before and put it outside somewhere in the shade so it can thaw out and let it warm up so you can start grinding it. And it's usually thawed out by 10 o'clock the next morning. So when we grind it, there's 2 ways. You can have a specific grinder, or we used an attachment for the KitchenAid. Before we grind the seaweed, we look for things that we don't want in our seaweed. There's other types of seaweeds, there's bugs, there's shells, so we don't want any of that or anything else that doesn't look right in our seaweed. So we like to look through that first, and then what we did with the KitchenAid is put the hopper up and then we stuffed it through. When you're using any of the grinders, the manual grinder or the electric grinder, how wet your seaweed is very important. If you have it too wet in the electric grinder, it comes out like mush. When you put it through, it clogs up in the holes if it's too dry. So if it's too dry, you have a bowl of water and you wet your fingertips, and then you either pick it up and have your wet fingers, or you can rub it on the top and then just feed it through the hopper on the electric grinder. You can do a couple strands, you can do the strands and fold them over so they're more fuller, but you just need to keep feeding the grinder. So this is the ground seaweed, and now we're going to take it outside in the sun to let it dry. So now that we're done grinding, we go on to step 3, and it's the drying process. If the weather's not good, you can dry it inside your house with a heat source, or you can take it outside and dry it in the sun. So what you need is you need a piece of long cardboard or a nice long piece of plywood, and then you cover that with a sheet. Then you take your bowl of your ground seaweed and you dump it, and then you fluff it around with a fork, because that helps it not flatten the seaweed so it can stay higher and fluffier. So you just use your fork and spread it out. So you let that dry, and that's considered the first drying. And then when that dries, fairly good, now you start pulling it apart. You don't want to pull really hard, you just want to pull it apart. A lot of times the inside is still wet or damp, and you can see it based on the color. So you pull it apart and then put it back on the opposite side. And the reason we're doing that is we want to open it up so it dries out, because if you don't, the seaweed sours. And then when that's done, we move on to the third drying. The pieces are a lot smaller, but you still pull them apart. If it's real crispy, then you know it's dried. If it's not crispy, you need to pull it apart again and then put it on your table. So when you're done with your dried seaweed, you can actually flavor it if you want. A common one is mixing sugar and water, and you mix that to taste. And then you put it in a spray bottle, and then you spray all of your dried seaweed, and it'll dry really fast. And when that's dry, you turn it over and then spray it again. Another common one is clam juice. You can make up a teriyaki sauce and do the same with the spray bottle. Is spray it, let it dry, turn it over, spray it again, let it dry, and then process it. Drying seaweed is not hard, and doing this, you can do it with friends, you can do it with family. By doing so, this helps continue our cultural traditions.